Do you often find yourself doing something unproductive, or maybe still technically productive, but just not what you're supposed to be doing, and you know that you should be doing that other intended thing, and you sort of want to be able to do that intended thing, but you're just not doing that intended thing, and you can't even seem to make yourself want to do that intended thing? I know, I definitely struggle with this, but I do feel like I've learned quite a lot since this first started to become a serious problem. And today I'd like to share with you some of the things I've really found to help me be more productive and actually start doing that task and sticking to doing that task. In case you're thinking to yourself, he's just a kid. Exactly. The ultimate procrastinators, especially seeing as the consequences aren't that big for the most part. If I don't write this script, film this video, there will still be food on the dinner table. At least I hope there is. So let's get straight to it. The first thing you need to get down is planning your day. Now there are many ways of doing this and everybody's different, but here are a few of the main things that should help. One is to plan your day to the minute. Every hour is sectioned off with a task or something you need to do. Many find this very useful as they always know what to do next and so won't procrastinate. And a great tool I find for this is Google Calendar, but this is just my choice. There are many others out there that do the same things. You can set out different parts of your day colour-coded to what sort of task it is, and you can write little notes about that task for that particular day. However, for many, this brings up too many constraints and they feel trapped. It especially doesn't work the second something unthought of comes up or an emergency task. The second one, which right now is my preferred way, is just to write down the 3 main tasks you want to get done in that day. As for most people, for which I'm guilty for as well, we write down way too many very big tasks where it's practically impossible to get everything done in that day. And then all these tasks are pushed over to the next day where you have the same problem. And so with less but bigger tasks, you're able to get more done in that particular task and you're able to get into the flow of things. And when you're in the flow of things, you get stuff done a lot faster. And for the smaller tasks, you can just write them down in a way that they have less priority and just find a chunk in your day where you just get everything that's a small task done. Another thing that I've started to do is to set up your tasks, what you're doing at the moment, like a column-like fashion, where you've got to do, doing, and done, with all the other processes in between. I find this is a good way to give you a clear idea of everything that's going on at the moment, what you need to be working on right now, what's nearly done, and when you need to upload something. And I said upload because I was referring to videos, but that could be anything. Now that hopefully you've got that side of your plan done, there are a few other things you might want to take into consideration. The first is to make sure you get your most important work done first. This is because not only do you have more energy in your day, along with many other things, but it also means that if you get nothing else in that day done, at least you've got the most important thing done. And of course, once you've got your most important thing done, you're more likely to do the other smaller tasks because they don't feel as daunting. Second, you should regularly update your routine. During lockdown, I became very productive with the exact same routine every day. I'd go to the gym at 6, read for an hour, then work for another 2 hours, then have breakfast, and so on. And it worked very well for about 2 months, but then I found myself coming towards a productivity slump. After a while, I decided to switch up my routine, and to my surprise, it really did change. Like, I was so much more productive practically the day I implemented it. The reason that changing your routine now and again is refreshing and it makes you more productive is simply because we easily get bored of our same old routine. Of course, some of us faster than others, but it is surprising how quickly we do become bored of it and need a change of routine. And I don't just mean reordering your to-do list, although this is a good start. I mean bigger things like changing your work environment if possible, and going through things like phases. You may know how some professional athletes, they go through phases in their training routine. They'll start off with things like endurance, then they'll go to strength, then they'll go to speed. Then they keep on redoing this cycle and they'll plan rest into their schedule. Or you can apply the same principle to being productive. For 2 or 3 months you could be at your, well, it depends where you are in your cycle so far right now, but you could be really productive, max yourself out, use a lot of your energy, get everything done. Then for the next 2 to 3 months, cool down a bit. Maybe you should focus more on learning. Of course you still need to get stuff done, you can't just stop work, but you can focus more on your learning side of things and improving yourself with things such as learning new skills, reading more books, which, although in the time, especially after being really productive, you think might not be very productive, but you do save a lot of time if you could learn something like programming And then you don't have to pay anyone to make a website, or you understand these things better. And when you do have an idea, you can just snap it out. Well, not quite snap it out, it does take quite a long time, and I forgot to add, like, when you're really productive, that'd be considered the peak for the athlete. That's when they're focusing on speed, and then the endurance, I suppose you could translate to the learning part. You don't need to get it really translated to that analogy, but the idea of having rest time is something that you should try and fit into your routine. Another thing about rest, you should probably try and find a day every week or every 2 weeks where you do more relaxing work, whether that's reading or spending time with your family, because after all, health does come first. Because if not, you're dead. And in case you're wondering why can't you just stay at your peak all the time, well, there's a simple reason for this, and you can just translate it to really anything. When you're sprinting, in general, for most people, there comes a point where you have to stop printing. There comes a point where you have to stop printing because you've run out of energy. And although you're still sleeping, this does apply to being productive. You can't max yourself out forever. When you're resting physically, or in productivity terms like learning, that's actually where you make the most progress. Like, a bodybuilder doesn't actually grow when he's lifting weights. He grows when he's not lifting weights. It's just that lifting weights is telling his body what to focus on, and then when he's having a rest, that's when it starts to grow. An additional thing you might want to add into your days is to give yourself a daily highlight. By this I mean something that you know you will enjoy in that day. This could still be, doesn't have to be something like reading. It could even be watching TV. But you do need to make sure it does happen, because if not, you won't take yourself seriously. And for the benefits of actually having a daily highlight, it means you're less likely to procrastinate or do anything other than what you've intended to do, because you know there will come a point where you can do that thing. This isn't on the outline of my script, but the reason we struggle with procrastination is simply because of our primal ancestors. They were always seeking instant gratification because they never knew that there was going to be a tomorrow. They could get eaten by a bear in the night. And so our brains have been wired to always seek the thing that rewards us the fastest possible. There's no point having the berry tomorrow, because you might die in between. And this is why it's so important to make sure this daily highlight does happen, because then you've told your brain to relax and that it's allowed to focus on what you want to focus on, because you will get that berry at the end of the day. Well, it doesn't have to be at the end of the day, but it probably should. I don't know why I said it doesn't need to, because it probably does. I'll cut that bit out, hopefully. Now that hopefully you've planned your day, you've got your priorities straight, now you actually need to get into that productivity state. By productivity state, I just mean like that flow state, that zone, that productivity zone. It might be a struggle for you to get into that productive zone, especially if you've just been in a slump, or you've been doing some high stimulating activities such as watching videos, playing games, or even reading and listening to the news. You should probably now do something dramatically less stimulating. I recommend doing something like going on a walk or going to the gym. Although these are still enjoyable, they're not like dopamine dispensers that are just feeding you dopamine without you really doing anything. This way, if your work is something relatively less interesting, such as reading or even just general work, this is actually really uncomfortable. Your brain will already be in this level of lower stimulation, making these tasks less boring or maybe even interesting. Then I'd recommend breaking down your task of the day, or your 3 tasks of the day, as I said earlier, into more conceivable chunks. So if I was to use making a video as an example, decide which video to make, plus a couple points to make in the video, do research, then organise the notes, write the notes into a script, plan filming the A-roll and the B-roll, film the video, edit the video, which I'd also break down into chunks, then make the thumbnail, and finally upload the video, where now I know exactly what I need to do next, and it seems less daunting of a task. And put the things that you might find distractions with for procrastination in the most inconvenient place possible, and I'll go over a couple things you can do about that in a second. Then make sure you do that task for at least 20 minutes. So it's the hardest to do, especially seeing as you can't have any distractions during that 20 minutes, but usually past that point it's a lot easier to do unless you really hate what you're doing. This is called getting into the flow state, and I've already been over this in a past video on my channel, and I'll probably do future videos on it. But just to keep it short here, being in the flow state is basically like being in the zone, and it's pretty much the building blocks for being productive and getting things done. Now back to ways to limit distractions. For your phone you can put it on silent mode, or you can use some things to filter certain phone calls so that you only get the urgent ones. It's also a good idea to put it in an inconvenient place, like out of your reach, or even in a different room. And this goes for any quick hit of dopamine, anything that's instantly pleasurable, as now you've taken out the instantaneous part about it, and now your brain's probably going to find more pleasure out of doing what you're doing right now, like your task. There are a couple of apps, one's a Chrome extension and one's an application that you can install on your computer. The one you can install on your computer is called Freedom, and it allows you to block certain applications and websites for a certain amount of time. Although I don't have it because it's not free. So although I do recommend it if you can afford it, it's not too expensive, but don't just get it because I said I think it's good. Like, have a look at what other people think of it who do use it. The one I do use is called Forest, and the reason I like it is because it's free. No, not only because it's free, because it really helps me be productive, and I've used it a lot lately. It's a bit like Freedom in the sense that you can block certain websites for 25 minutes. You can't really choose the time, it's just 25 minutes. But at least that helps you get into the flow state, and it's helped me get into the flow state quite a bit. Also, during those 25 minutes, a tree is growing, and at the end of it you get a little notification saying your tree has grown. But on the other hand, if you do go onto one of those websites that you've specifically blocked and you press the give up button, it will send you a message saying your tree has been killed. And for a serial killer this doesn't mean much, but for most people, including myself, we much prefer the little notification that says our tree has grown over you killed it. So I find this quite a fun and satisfying way of being productive, and to help me get into that flow state in the beginning when you need to limit all those distractions. Alright, so that pretty much wraps it up for this video. I hope that you learned something new and that you're able to apply this to your life to hopefully make your days a bit more productive. If you feel like it and have any feedback, please do leave a comment down below and tell me something about the video, anything it could improve upon, or what you thought. Additionally, if you did enjoy this video, you might want to check out some of my other videos and maybe even consider subscribing. And to support me in this video, you could like the video, as not only would this show me your support, but it would also help boost this video and the YouTube algorithm to show more people these sort of videos, and hopefully this channel can grow so I can continue uploading videos just like this, if that's what you want, of course. Anyway, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you in my next video.